Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the IFI World Interiors Day 2020. Our topic for today is about Nexus Interiors, and we would like to acknowledge the presence of our IFI ambassador, Ms. Constance Ann, and our WID chair, Mr. Chris Chen. Okay, our moderator for today will be Mr. Raj Shah, and our speaker will be Mr. Kiat Ong, our president, Mr. Philip Connor, one of our honorary advisor, and Mr. Dennis Chok, one of our members. We would also acknowledge the presence of one of our honorary advisor, Mr. Nicholas Merrow Smith. So I'm giving the floor to Mr. Chris Chen. Okay, Chris, the floor is yours.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to our SIDS symposium. I feel great after our toasting, cheering that happened just now. I hope you guys are not too drunk because we're going to start our WID symposium now. Today, we are celebrating IFI WID online. First time online, and for the past few years, SIDS celebrated WID in different venues, parties, events, and talk. This year, due to the COVID lockdown, we are doing it live online. Our topic for this WID is Nexus. And we are pleased and honored to welcome our IFI ambassador, Ms. Constance, to give us a speech. Hand over to you, Constance.
Very good afternoon, one and all. Welcome to IFI World Interiors Day. Thanks, Chris, for your intro. We are now living in an unprecedented times. The world struggles to understand and overcome a global pandemic unlike any we have experienced in our lifetime. I sense that the COVID-19 pandemic is here for a long run, a game changer and the beginning of a new normal entering our working lives. The interior industry is affected by this as countries go into lockdown. How will the interior design profession and the industry respond to these new challenges? Social distancing, working from home, home-based design practices, applying design software to its optimal capabilities, and digital design presentation via virtual reality will be new realities that we have to quickly implement and adapt to. What part and role can the local design societies play in helping fellow designers move forward? The theme for this year's World Interiors Day is Nexus Interiors. Nexus means to be linked, to be connected, to focus. It challenges the local design societies to take up the leadership role, to respond in creative and effective ways for the profession to remain sustainable and relevant in the midst of an uncertain future due to the global economic slowdown, exacerbated by travel restrictions. Can the Society of Interior Designers Singapore be the nexus for fellow designers to work together to meet the new challenges? We can spearhead dialogue with government agencies, institutions, and the industry to work with us to create opportunities for skill training and upgrading. We can work out business opportunities for, to sustain our practices. We can join resources and skills to collaborate on projects. This year, World Interiors Day 2020 will be well remembered for the unfortunate circumstances in which it took place, though we hope it will be the one and only to occur during such challenging times. However, it is a good starting point for us to begin thinking of the future and to stay united as we face unparalleled hurdles in the months to come. Meanwhile, stay healthy, stay safe, stay happy. I wish you all a very memorable World Interiors Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Constance An, our IFI ambassador. Truly, it's a very, very challenging time for our interior design industry. That's why in SIDS, we even have our One SGIE initiative to help the industry cope with the current pandemic. So without further ado, I will give our first speaker, Mr. Kiet Ong. I will give the floor to Mr. Kiet Ong, our first keynote speaker. Kiet.
Hi, James. Thanks. Hi, good evening, my fellow members and all interior design practitioners and industry people. Very good evening to everyone. And today is World Interiors Day. Once a year, we celebrate this very important day. And of course, I think today, usually I would be sharing my project, my work, but because it's the pandemic, so everything changes, including our lifestyle, our normal now become a new normal, so everything changes. So I usually wear quite a few hats, so today I'm gonna change another hat. To the president of SIDS, so I'm addressing these slides as the on behalf of SIDS. Okay, I think times have changed, as I mentioned, and those designers with overseas projects are now having issues of international travel restrictions, not being able to service your client, not being able to go to site. Those with local projects, likewise, you can't start work now. Every construction work, every renovation work has to stop. So our life is in a tailspin now, so to say. But fret not, I think let's brace ourselves together. And SIDS know the pride that we are all facing now at this moment. So we started the One SGID campaign. In short, means One Singapore Interior Designers campaign. And we want everyone to unite at this point of time, especially the interior design practitioner, the interior design industry players, and all stakeholders. So I think this is the time that we all have to stand together. The fitter one has to help the weaker one. So it's a campaign that we want to draw everyone's attention and to brace ourselves, help one another. So for that, we have done what we have never done before, which is our One SGID membership scheme. So for now, we are offering complimentary professional and associate membership to all existing and new members for a period of 1 year. And this has been unprecedented. And I hope everyone take this chance to come together. and there's a lot of things we need to do together. And I think we often have question of what can the industry do for you, or what can the society do for you? So the question I want to pose back is, what can you do for the industry now, and what can you do for the profession at this point? So we need everyone to unite at this point, come together, help each other, and find new opportunity. So come to us, as a platform, and we will make this happen. And that leads us to our second initiative, which is our Sgi D Forum. We have them on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we want everyone to be participating in this, to share your thoughts, to share your even solutions, and even to help the one with problems come together, use this opportunity to find solutions. And of course, the third initiative, we know when the CV stops, the circuit breaker stops, we have to go back to work progressively. One of the most important things that we cannot do without is our face mask. So we have a mask on, march on campaign. Of course, there are limited stock, but we are giving this out to all our members while stock lasts. We'll make further announcement on this one through our website. And next thing I want to jump to is cost index. What is cost? Cost actually represent the communal stress test index. So it's created by us. Okay, next slide we see the, this is actually my house. So now everyone knows how my house looks like, very messy. So, but okay, so that's besides the point. If we look at the top photo, right? The top left-hand corner, that's our front patio. So you see there are different colors there. There's a tick, green tick, there's a tick cross, yellow color, and then there's a orange circle, and then there's a red cross. So what does all this mean? So we are following the national emergency colors that the country is using. So means that it's able to support two or more sustained both communal or personal activities. So let me explain what is sustained. They are in this index, they are sustained and they are transient activities. So transient activities are fast activities like washing hands, like drying your clothes, so things that takes less than half an hour. Then there are sustained activity that lasts longer, like watching TV, playing games, and so on. So green tick actually means that this area are able to support two or more sets of communal activities. As you can see from the picture, kids are playing, I'm working, so the wife is drying clothes. So these are communal activities that are up to two or more. And then to the right side, you see the living room. So living room is the same thing. Common thing for most households is that the living room would be the one that is most multifunctional. And then this one is the one that can sustain a lot of activities together, working, playing, doing homework, and so on. Right, then up to the dining room. So this is the challenging part where a lot of households whereby, dining room is just meant for dining. But of course, there are smaller units that are convertible. So that leads us to the cross tick. Cross tick actually means that it can sustain two or more sets of activities at different time. So the green one is at the same time. So that leads us to the master bedroom whereby, you can do one thing at a time. Either you sleep there or you do your work or you watch TV. You don't do them all at one go. So that's why it has a yellow tick and cross. And then same for the children's room, which is smaller. So it's either they use it for sleeping or doing homework and studying and things like that. So it's two sets of activity at different time zone. And then kitchen, then the circle actually means that it's only able to sustain one set of activities. And then to the backyard, whereby it become multifunctional again. And then up to the studies. Studies is only can sustain one sets of activities so that it cross. So what we are trying to do here is that to encourage a lot of us, because after the CB, we are definitely trapped at home. So after the CB, there may be partial release, or partial restriction leave. And most of us may still end up at home anyway. So I think this set of things is to allow homeowner and designer to start appreciating what a home can do for you and how to make them comfortable, because interior design is our trade. So somehow, we don't need to tell people that, you need to do a good renovation here and there. I think through some simple means, we can make our life better. So this set of index are encouraging people to actually stretch the potential of your home. Okay. Anyway, the news and follow-up of this cost index, we will see more from our website and our EDM. After you join up as our members, you will get the information as well. Okay, next we jump to our professional enrichment programs that we have it all the time. So, but this is the first time that we are launching our e-lectures. So these e-seminars and e-lectures will be divided into separate category. So have a look out for this as well on our website. We'll do an announcement, and then these are all split into different categories, including technology, design, businesses, etc. And then the next one, we have our social engagement activities. So this is a more relaxed environment. Also, I think members and non-members, you are welcome to join this, and hopefully after this, join us as a family. And this is one of the more casual meetup event, but we are doing it via electronic online means as well. So our first e-La Kopi will happen next Wednesday. Yeah, so you didn't hear me wrong. It's e-La Kopi. So so the thing is, people are encouraged to come in to talk about to rap, to talk about your grievances, or maybe some solution that you have provided for your peers and things like that. So it's a free session for everyone to come in. But do make sure you have a cup of coffee in front of you. Don't cheat us. Okay. Then the next one, actually, before the actual lockdown, on March 20th, we actually held a very important meeting, which is the Interior Design Accreditation Roundtable, the very first one. As you can see from the picture, there are important organizations that are involved, including DSG, including Arc Asia, including VOA, including SIA, SFIC, and all the schools that are providing interior design courses, as well as important associations that are related to this. Yeah. So the who's who and the shareholder, all the important industry stakeholders are there to discuss about the future of the interior design accreditation. Okay, so simply we have grouped them into 4 stakeholder groups. So they are the government agencies, the trade associations, the education institutions, as well as the practitioners' representative. Okay, of course, I think there are a lot of government schemes that have been rolled out. I think we have a very efficient, very good government. So you can find those links that are related to our trade on our website as well. And if you have any further query, please take note of the email. You can email us, and we will give you some answers somehow. Okay, so please take note or do an image capture of this. This is our official website, our Facebook, and then our forum link. Okay, this is our this is our Facebook page, and then this is our forum. Okay, this is our LinkedIn. This is our LinkedIn group. Okay, thank you very much. Without further ado, I think I'll pass this on to the James. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Keith Ong. Okay, unprecedented times really require unprecedented measures. So thank you, SIDS, for all these initiatives. Uh, I'll give the floor to our next speaker, Mr. Phillips Connor. Phillips, you ready?
Right. Okay, you unmuted me automatically, right? All right. Okay. Okay. I've been asked to speak today a little bit about design in celebration of World Interiors Day and the topic of Nexus. So I've kind of mined my own experience over the years and approach to design, and I'd just like to share a few thoughts on experiential interior space, which is quite important to me. So those of you that don't know me already, I'm a design consultant. I work for a company called Independent Consultants. We provide a series of professional services for mentoring and creative strategy. We also work with a collaborative group called Paperspace, which you may have heard of, which is a collective of a number of different firms in a variety of cities throughout Asia. And then we provide services primarily for corporate office design with the best expertise of a variety of indie firms. But on to sharing my thoughts. When I was first asked to speak, I took a bit of time to try to avoid talking about COVID, since that seems to be in everybody's mind these days. Tired of the bad news, so I tried very hard not to make this about how to deal with COVID or blah, 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 because there's so much of that already out on the net, already there for your consumption, and tried not to give that cheery upside of preparedness as well, because there's still a lot of uncertainty in the market. It just seems impossible to avoid these days, but I'm going to try over the course of this presentation to at least try to say no to COVID for a little while. So let's talk about the theme. The theme, as Constance and Keith James mentioned, is Nexus. So Nexus, it's a means of connection or linking together, create a centrally connected group or network, as well as a core central essence. And that's really the essence of what I want to talk about today, that when we all come together, Zooming together today, to talk about my observations on design and what that nexus means to me. And the fact that we're willing to come together for a few moments like this and talk about design, talk about its impact, both on our clients and on ourselves and on the design community, I think is really, really exciting. So perhaps it's a bit long-winded, but we get this day once a year, and we get to shine a bright light on our impactful efforts. You know, let's give ourselves a little pat on the back, our professionalism and our accomplishments all around. And that's pretty cool. So let's take advantage of that. And personally, I guess coming back to my theme, I've thought a lot over the years about approach to design and the resulting spaces we've created and how projects really come about. And the one thing that's clearly distilled to me at the end of almost everything is that there's a core aspect in designing interior space, and that is that nexus importance of experience. So the importance of experience is about creating a memorable impression, as well as the practical use and occupational requirements that we do in design and planning, but create something that is, you know, tastes good, basically. So a few moments to touch on that theme. The experience that one gets is a direct result of thoughtful planning, design, detailing, articulation, everything that we do in interior space. And because this experience that as we interact with interior space, it's a human condition. It's inextricably tied to so many key parts of living and wellness. It's really important. So it creates emotions within us and with the way we interact with space, the way we perceive our relationships with others, whether these be good, bad, emotional, mundane, surprising, or monotonous. All these feelings may be influenced by us, by design and designer, if consciously addressed. So I call this strategy a kind of a benevolent manipulation. If we take advantage of our skills, our experience, our capabilities, and use that to enhance design, but beyond just the prosaic aspects of design itself, and use that together with a little bit of environmental persuasion as well. And it's particularly relevant now because of COVID, because the space that we're all kind of trapped into at the moment is pervasive and it has high impact on our well-being and our psyche. So it's now high time to recapture the experience. So, you know, whether we're living in a one-room flat or we're living in a mansion or we're living on whatever, it's a valuable notion now, but it's also important in normal times as well. But the key is creating a better quality of life. That's what it's all about to me. So with COVID now, our spaces that we are stuck in, at least for the circuit breaker period, these few months and beyond, they have to perform in a greater multitude of ways. Normal home life, for which many of them were only designed, concentrated work now, collaborative work, video conferencing, social interactions, all this space is probably only ever anticipated for a very simple rest space. Now it needs to do a lot of things for a lot of different people that may be in the same household. So the current personal spaces that we have, we must not use everything, which can make us feel a bit trapped and uncertain. So the spaces we're in now, they do give us an experience, but it's probably not an optimum or a serendipitous one. So it's too often without joy. So it's something I think we consciously need to address. So my obsession, experiential spaces, is particularly relevant to home and work from home spaces, but it's an approach that's also relevant to different types of projects: public, corporate, retail, institutional, of course, hospitality and entertainment, which I'll touch on a little bit more later. Relative to entertainment, of course, many of you may know me and my work for the heritage entertainment brand Zook. And of course, the concept of experiential space was always a big part of the brief on those projects over the years. We did almost 20 over the course of almost 30 years. But these experiential don't really need to be only for dramatic projects. They're part of everyday projects as well. Experiential can mean soft touch and small detail just as well. And in Singapore, we have a heads up, just like a few other Asian countries, in that we are used to designing small spaces. We are used to getting the most out of every dollar, out of every square foot. So we're a lot more skilled than we realize or sometimes give ourselves credit for. But the key to great space for me has always been personal. It's the way that it characterizes, it's the way that all the characteristics that go into the realization of an interior environment are purposefully planned, designed, and ultimately forming, coming back to this theme again, the nexus. So to support a better quality of life for everyone that uses the space or visits it, or has impact on society as a whole. So on World Interiors Day, I'll just share a little bit about what I found important and useful on the road to achieving this. Again, my obsession with experiential spaces. So to me, that obsession is based on, first of all, the recognition of the need that it's important, the experience or the research or the background that forms that, where it comes from, and those influences. So importance, we want simple joy, we want quality of life and meaning, we want help to lead others in self-development, and it's important across all aspects of space, as I mentioned before, not just domestic, not just commercial. As Kay Sargent and H.O.K. said a few years ago, we're no longer designing environments or spaces, we're designing the experience itself. So experience. I've done many things personally to feed this kind of obsession, to understand the relationship of experience to interior design. I travel a lot, festivals and events in particular, to give you a new outlook on the way people interact. Try new things, be open to learn as much as possible about anything and everything, experiment, be willing to fail, evangelize to others like we're doing here today, share the passion. The influences, the successful development of those, of those spaces is heavily influenced by three factors, in my opinion. Things under our control, things only partially under our control, and things totally out of our control. So some of these you may know, they're very obvious, but as designers, space, layout, and planning, that's under our control. Okay, we can manage them. We know we do that every day. It's the basis of what we do. Light, form, texture, all of these have significant impact on the perception of space, on the experience of the space, on the sensuality or the sensory nature of that space. And for my work in particular, I derive references and inspiration from a variety of different sources. Color, materiality, sound even, okay? All of these things that I just mentioned are under our control. But things that are only partially under our control in creating spaces, creating the perception and the experience that people get from them, are relationship and proximity to other things. If it's a tenancy space, or it's a condo within an entire development, or a unit within a city, all of these have impact on the perception of the space itself, its location within that larger geographic network. Again, pull out the camera a little bit further, geography, climate, all of these things, our ability to impact them is far more limited. And then there's a third category of things that are totally out of our control. Population density. We can, as I think we've experienced in many spaces throughout the years, some spaces will fill up very rapidly or be entirely empty. Look at airplanes today. Coronavirus, yes, it's back, okay? Totally out of our control at the moment. But also smaller nuanced things like individual perception that's based on people's own knowledge, education, background, even generations. Personal culture, beliefs and religion. The prevalent societal or generational cultural beliefs and fads at the moment. Fads and trends, okay? The whole millennial thing. And the brand presentation controls standards and expectations when we're dealing with commercial spaces, retail, hospitality, and so forth. So in this third category, almost all of these things are totally out of our control, and our ability to influence or contribution to the experience that one perceives from the space is quite negligible. But we can use fundamental principles to take a look at how to deal with stuff. So the resulting essential characteristics of experiential spaces will become the DNA, often include things that develop out of this process. Will be serendipitous surprise, which provokes an involuntary expression of thoughts or emotions. Maybe quiet, maybe loud, but it is something that is unpredicted and gives satisfaction. Comfort, a basic aspect. Both physical, visual, noise, psychological, safety as well. Scale, okay, the relationship is very important in our approach to design, interior space, much more so than in architecture. And an adaptability to growth and change that may be expressed as flexibility, but not necessarily always. This practicality or fit for use is obviously an underlying characteristic as well as durability is. So these principles are not an arbitrary application or appropriation of concept elements, okay? They are not a aesthetic application. Doing that is going to suggest attributes of superficiality, meaningless, and destroying the quality of the space, in my opinion. So the key to foster appropriate integration of concept elements is for a holistic, intelligent approach. So it comes back to those kinds of tools or those approaches to deal with the influences and the fundamental principles I just outlined. Benevolent manipulation, environmental persuasion. Benevolent manipulation is the way we allow the space to telegraph or to broadcast these various keys and aspects to people to influence their perception. And that environmental persuasion is the result of those aspects doing their work within the space and able to achieve the effect that we're looking for. So these kinds of techniques are commonly deployed in high impact areas like hospitality and retail, less so in residential and corporate and other areas, but they're also very important, particularly now where we're all stuck in our homes and we deal with spaces every day. We need this kind of input, this kind of emotion. So if we take this approach, we'll get results and we'll get satisfied people and users. They'll be pleasantly surprised. They'll experience real value. Their interactions with use of space. They'll understand what and why, if not exactly how, a little bit more, and not just be reliant on an aesthetic interpretation of design. It helps to distinguish us and our professionalism throughout the industry. And they appreciate the objectives of doing so. So what we get out of these processes, if they're successfully deployed, are important byproducts, what I call the DNA. So they're always inherent to successful outcomes, so to greater or lesser scale for different ones. But you get a reactionary, stimulating, or emotionally sensual response to space. There may be some degree of interactivity, which can drive that even further in commercial applications. You may have an Instagrammability of the space. Something is talked about, something is notable. But of course, there's practicality, a multiplicity of use, and an aptitude for organic change and development, and a non-destructive style of growth. Beauty, of course. At the end of the day, we still have to imbue the spaces that we deal with a degree of beauty and aestheticism. And imbued egalitarianism and empathy of cultural sensitivity should also be prevalent in the space, with concept of wellness and biophilia pervading our approach to design these days, so that everyone feels cared for. And a distinct but related, a sense of anti-elitism, anti-egotism, and anti-monumentalism. Okay? We're not building celebrations of design. We're building spaces that celebrate the people that interact with them. We don't want to build a personality cult. So these important byproducts, just summarized here, which I've already spoken about. In my work, I'll just cite a few examples. I don't normally like to talk about it in detail, but a personal journey has impacted the way that I've explored these concepts and able to deliver them to some of our clients. A lot of that's been through travel impact, visual cultural aspects, particularly festivals and signature events, which I mentioned earlier. They provide a rich resource of atmospheric aspects to consider. And some of these most stunning, just a few examples that I participated in recently, have been Day of the Dead in Mexico, which is a celebration of life and death and ancestors in a very visual, very charismatic way. That, strictly speaking, is not interior space, but it has this emotive quality, which is the perception of interaction with space. African tribal mass dances in West Africa, the Fallas in Spain. The Fallas is a festival that takes over the entire city for an entire month, creates multi-story effigies, some up to 10 stories tall, and then after a week, sets them all on fire in a cathartic kind of celebration of life. Zouk Out music festivals, lost my shared screen. Tomorrowland, also a music festival, because of their interactivity, because of their direct reach into customers or participants' minds and ability to perceive, with all those aspects I mentioned. And of course, Burning Man in Nevada. I include this because this is what I call a thwarted festival and events. This is something I've been trying to go to for years and years because of its very strong, I won't say high design aspect, but its impact on a large number of people and on the way of thinking and perceiving space and interaction with it. So it's combination festival, combination art, combination craziness. It gives a lot of different, very strong opinions, both artistic and design and environmental, to have a think about. And I find that its ability to influence the way we think and the way we color our design could be quite strong. But looks like it's canceled this year, like everything else. So we just survive with a few pictures like you see here, showing you the wide diversity of creativity. Not necessarily high design, but giving you that extreme experimentation and exploration to take a look at things. And it culminates as a festival, an outdoor festival, with the burning of a wooden effigy to symbolize again a cathartic moment in time and a wiping of the slate clean, like a New Year kind of feeling. So where these principles or approaches have come through in my work, I won't bore you with a lot of that today because I've already spoken for a long time, but I've been fortunate to work on a few projects where we've been able to do this. I'm just going to talk about the work for Zook and entertainment facilities of the moment first, because it's interesting in that it is creative work that has spanned 25 years, or actually more than 25 years now, from very early days. And on average, every year and a half, we would do a renovation project in a variety of different room settings and clubs. It was always very experimental. It always had the opportunity to take a look at things in a diagrammatic way before we actually built them. It included building as well as interiors, and it was always reinventing itself. So we had the opportunity to reinvent from form, from materiality, from light, from interaction with sound, all those principles I was talking about before. I'll just page through these quickly because they show the test of time from the early 90s all the way through the most recent project, which was completed a couple of years ago in Clark Key. But they're responding to a demographic, they're responding to a need to create an environment and a impressionable space. Even this very large, one of the largest clubs in the world in Kuala Lumpur, 100,000 square feet with 10 different outlets, including building design as well. So the integration of accessories and features and details, interactivity, as well as interior space design. So if anyone is interested, of course, I can talk about this in more length. This is the most currently completed one. Of course, sadly now closed. I'm sure many of you have been to it, but in Clark Key, opened a few years ago, and a two-story space that imbues all the characteristics of reinventing the brand for Zook, catering to a young and old demographic at the same time, and providing a variety of things in those types of unique spaces. So I know I've spoken for a lot, but just a few concluding remarks. These are things that I felt might be useful to share today. Just my reflections, but I hope I give you some stimulation to other designers to help to keep pushing the boundaries and not just think about things in such a prosaic manner, and move towards a more enhanced development of new and exciting spaces everywhere. The spaces that are impactful and memorable, whether they be a 50 square foot pop-up or exhibition or an HDB flat, or Google's new megaplex, okay? Things have to move people and involve and interact with them to require and create this kind of active cognition between people and space. So we can create great experiential spaces for all of us that hopefully add value and quality to our lives. And that's what I have to talk about today. So I will hand back to our MC and let's see where we go from here.
Thank you very much, Phillips. That was a great and wonderful presentation. All those colorful designs that you made, it's really very, very impressive. Okay, so, let me have a few words as a designer also. I have noticed that moving forward, we will have a lot of changes. You see, the new normal will be emerging. So as designers, we have to strike the balance. Okay, basically we have to adapt. Okay, maybe the nice spaces might be replaced by more spaces. That means expanding spaces, spaces that will require more social distancing. You see, for the near term, I can only see this on the near term. Maybe in 2 to 3 years, but in the long term, I think human nature will also bring us back to where we are, where we still we will still follow our design instincts and still make better designs rather than functional designs because of COVID-19, right? So currently what I observed is people are, in other organizations also that I watch, all of those previous talks, they've been talking about, especially for the architects in built environments, they've been talking about passive cooling, indoor air quality, you know, providing more space rather than more functional space, but as in more space. So this will really affect the way people interact within a space because now they are trying to discourage interactivity. They wanted people, or I mean, you know, how can I say, in offices before, like co-working spaces, they bring people together in one space to interact, to socialize. But come June 2 or beyond, we will be encouraged to be further away from people. So these are the changes that personally I can see, you know, and hopefully it will just be gradual, like what I say as designers. We need to strike a balance. See, I hope all of us can relate to this. And for now, I think I'll have to pass over the floor to Dennis. Dennis Chop, yeah. So I give the floor to you for your talk.
All right, thanks, James. And it's always very stressful to follow up from Constance, from Kiet, from Phillips, the, the veterans in the industry. And on this note, Phillips, you got to talk about your work a bit more. I never knew you were involved in the Zook projects. I have spent much of my formative, foolish youth in those environments. And
Really? How is that possible?
I assure you that there was a lot
I'm
of
as old
joy.
as a dinosaur. Surely you must know.
There was too much joy in those memories. So I look at all of them really
Yeah.
fondly.
Joy.
We gotta go to a festival when,
Yeah.
when they do occur.
Let me know. Yeah.
Next time. And I'm gonna whip out my slides. I have 120 slides. So it's gonna be a very rapid slideshow. And when Kiet started talking, I found myself a little bit encumbered with guilt because it seems like I'm gonna spend that 15 minutes talking about myself and my work. But I have to remind myself also of what I told a fellow designer and fellow creatives around me. If we do work and if we do good work, there's no shame and guilt in sharing what we do, especially in times like this, and we should all continue to inspire. But that aside, I stand here maybe more on the ground and more of someone as a business owner. I do also wear a few hats here. As a business owner, as a creative, and also representing a firm that has benefited a lot in the company of SIDS and the society and the support and recognition that has been given to me and the firm. So take this more as a note of gratitude and also hopefully to inspire the viewers and audience today. Okay, now let me just pull up my screen. All right, there we go. So upstairs and sits the Society of Interior Designers in Singapore. So upstairs, we're still a very small firm, and relatively compared to the world around us, we are a very young firm, and we are cross-disciplinarian in nature, and we are a very collaborative design studio. So we not only work with interiors and space, we also collaborate on brands and on objects and furniture. And most importantly, it's about collaborating in creative thoughts and ideas. So now, where do I even start? And I thought Facebook and Instagram now is so superbly helpful in helping me just recollect memories and just trace back key milestones. So this was 2011 when I first started the firm as a one-man show at home alone. And my only company is Juju. You see him in the background. And that's a very familiar feeling that we all have now. And at that moment in time, I felt that, you know, our industry is such an it thrives on interaction with our peers, with other creatives, with the builders, with suppliers, with the clients, and on site. So being stuck in this bubble at home. I did not last 6 months. I felt like I was literally going whack and crazy. And so with a few other equally idealistic creatives and friends, we decided to rent a premise, a shop house unit. It's fun. So the first 5-6 years of the firm, we spent at a shop house unit. It was at the top, and we had a beautiful pitch roof. And this was before we had WeWork and all. And we co-started this with the intention to share resources, share office space, and also share ideas together. But we enjoyed the space so much together, and we enjoyed the company so much together that we never managed to rent out any of that space. And clearly from the photo, maybe I was not anywhere near as stable mentally. And so the next step for the company came after much hesitation. But it was the start of new beginnings for us, collaborating with my two partners and the builders, getting more members of the team involved, designing our own office space, moving into a place that we can call our own, enjoying bright sunlight and big smiles. That's the team that I have now. There are a few members missing. We have new additions at the same time. So that's us upstairs, really upstairs on the rooftop. And so if you ask where the partners were, they're here wiping sweat and tears together with me also on the rooftop. So what SITS got to do with it? You may ask at this point, and that's Tina Turner, for those who don't recognize. And immediately have to go back a few more years, not so far, 2017, when I encountered this poster. I hear afterwards that it was designed personally by kids. So calling for entries for, with this very beautiful, I mean, we are visual people, so the quality of the poster really attracted me. I did not quite know what SIDS was and who they are, although I did speak with Design Singapore prior to that about accrediting the industry. So I did sign up. It was on the 31st, the submission cutoff was 31st December. I remember very vividly. I was churning submissions on New Year's Eve at home, and to no regrets, I suppose, because, well, this brings us to the next 3 projects that we enjoyed really recognition and really reaped benefits of just being part of this society and also being part of the awards festivities. 3 projects. These may be quite familiar projects to some of you by now. First must be the Crate Apartment. It is basically wiping out a resale HDB flat, cutting out every single wall that we could. And instead of walls, we built a ginormous wooden crate that housed rooms and also allowed for organic floor spaces around, so it could be compartmentalized in a very fluid way. And nostalgic touches always draws us to give our projects a soul. So during that time, Capitol Theatre was being renovated, not reinstated. And I encountered these film room doors and also encounters with nostalgia, kopia boards, because that was part of the client's culture. So here in this picture, you see the film room doors mounted and designed as art, almost like art pieces on that crate itself. And that's the owners. They are in the broadcast industry. And so, well, that was what drove me to think that it was a suitable gesture. The idea of film room and broadcast are very closely related to their lives. And these are friends also for 20 over years. Yeah, so another one of my favorite photos of this project when Keith, Sikin, and Mika are seen through little peepholes through that crate itself. So these are the rooms that were housed within the crate itself, and around it are these ultra large elements like the dining table. So now I hear that the three of them, Mika is now grown into a primary school kid, and the three of them sit alongside this table working from home or studying from home. Well, and then you see the popiah board in the foreground at the elevated Carrara marble plinth. Here's a close-up of it. And well, this project in particular really broke new grounds for us. It was received very well at awards, and it clinched two awards at 2018 and 19 CEDA Awards. Now the next project, Ply House, an architectural project, and our very first architectural project to complete. It's called Ply House because of the few layers of different spatial environments, each one very distinct from each other. So at the bottom, you would see a very almost earth-like half basement that has limited access to daylight. And then on the ground level, it's almost wall-less in nature, undulating floor surfaces that enjoy a direct horizontal relationship to the gardens, a very cloistered kind of gardens behind concrete walls. And above the private spaces, and with a half mezzanine attic, that's housed in this 100-year-old clay bricks that were salvaged from Chinese villages. So it's a byproduct of rapid urbanization in China, where villages are just completely torn down, and these bricks, they exist because you know, Chinese are known to be great business people. so these byproducts became products whereby they could export, and we managed to ship in a container of them to build this house. And that's the new form. And so to me, it was somewhat moving to take history from somewhere that we have close emotional and cultural ties with, and create something new and contribute to this conversation that we have going on. So a side view where you can see the layers of the ply. And this is the ground level where the dining space bleeds into the living space, which bleeds into the outdoor space. The basement, which is more heavy in terms of the color palette. We are looking at a lot of concrete, and also that side wall, which catches a sliver of natural daylight. Somehow this looks almost Japanese, like a Japanese house. I was surprised by the photo. And now we're going upstairs, where you can catch a glimpse of that brick which surrounds the private spaces. And there we go. So the private bedrooms are more cloistered in nature because of the very harsh external environments, not only the proximity to neighbors, we're basically staring into each other, but also it's a western sun-facing unit. So we need an intermediate filter such that the internal spaces are more conditioned and more comfortable for living in. But what I really love is that additional layer of texture and history that you catch a glimpse of in every room in that space. And we are heading upwards to the attic. And the most powerful space for me is when we emerge out of that brick shell and you can catch a glimpse of that cul-de-sac roofscape in the distant background. And that's the front view of the house, and it glows like a lantern at night. And you can, this was a happy accident. You can see how it casts little slivers of light onto the neighbor as well. And my first completed architectural projects with Trevi, she was 4 years old then, and yeah, this was at the end of the photo shoot day. And yeah, so this project also received 2 awards in 2017, 2018. And the third one, that was the very last award season, the Seafront Apartment. So the Seafront Apartment was housed in the East Coast, overlooking the sea, obviously by the name itself. But as the background goes, the owners are Indonesian, and they wanted a retreat. It's a holiday home. And so to us, the question is, how do we even mitigate the idea of that Balinese or Indonesian holiday retreats with wide horizons, natural beaches, versus Singapore, where our sea line is just, punctuated with oil tankers now carrying $0 oil. So it's, to me, it's about mitigating that idea. How do we draw inspiration for a retreat in an urban context while also trying to draw from memories, since the owner grew up in the 80s in this very apartment. So it was left underutilized for many good years until he decided, okay, let's just renovate it. Almost like a hotel room, since we are paying so much for hotels anyway, every few months that we visit. So this was the end result, and our material palette was much varied and much layered. We were laying on timber tones and marble grains and overhead graphics to draw the line towards the sea view outside, and also brought back to earth with fabrics, with sisal rugs, and also working very closely with Jotter Goods for this project, actually. I'm sure everybody is aware of Jotter Goods, who, well, as the name also suggests, borrows from that nostalgia of growing up in the 80s and borrowing from those details to create a new twist on furniture design, Singapore furniture design, may I add. So you can probably recognize many of their pieces in the project as well. And this view is going towards the private spaces already, when it starts to get a little bit more intimate and gets a little bit more hushed in terms of the feel of the space. And this is the master bedroom, where, well, we always see the master bedroom as a more intimate interpretation of the overarching concept for every apartment or house that we design. And so this borrows also from the oversized custom design graphics that we printed on fabric wallpaper. We borrowed from the curves of the original architecture and used them to bounce lights on wall surfaces or ceiling surfaces in a very indirect and soft way. Now this is the bedroom which leads to the bathrooms. So when we talk about retreat, we always want to pay close attention to the bathrooms as well. And this is where that layering of materials and textures and color really goes crazy, where there's so many materials in just this one view. And that's the shower stall. We didn't offer that curve, but instead worked with the curves of the bathroom's perimeter walls. So those are pre-existing. We worked with it. And so this project was also awarded two awards in the 2018-2019 award series. And so where does that lead us? Well, I was invited to speak, as I was this year, but last year a flight was involved, and that was so thrilling for just this little person that I was. Oh, I get to go overseas to talk, and people want to listen to me. And the invitation was to Chongqing, China. And so this is my Chongqing Express experience upon landing. So this was 2019 in May, really exactly a year ago. And the city just impressed and astounded me so much. There is so everything was impressive in the history and in how progressive and modern that it was. It almost made me feel shameful. And at the talk itself, the very next day after landing, and that was me being thrown a curveball the very second that I was meant to speak. I was told that there's no translator and you're on your own. Do it in Mandarin, please. Thank you. 谢谢你. It was, well, the crowd was very forgiving to my very broken Mandarin. I had to break back into English because I just could not speak poetically enough in Mandarin. I mean, I can have conversational Chinese or Mandarin exchanges, but not good enough to talk about design, I think. And it was very strange to also see a blow up standee of my own photo and to take a photo against that. So it was such a strange but exhilarating experience because it was all new. And that whole experience also came with an interview at the end of that talk. And this article was published on Weibo a good 5 days after my talk. So this is the Chinese efficiency. Right after an event happened and a couple of days after that interview, the article is already there. So very, very amazing. And so then the question also is, where is that next step and where do we go from all this? And so this is the most exciting part for me and for us as a firm for the past 2-3 years, really. And we saw that, you know, we could see tangible growth and tangible progress with what we do until this curveball called COVID happened, which really makes us put ourselves in standstill in some way, but also to go back retrospectively to reflect. So very quickly, some of the projects that we have been busy with, 1027 Sticks, designed as a cobbled, an apartment that's cobbled together with these black metal square hollow section sticks and drawing the eye upwards, and horizontally gray sticks that are almost like a ribbon that leads you towards the bedroom spaces or the private spaces. You can see the gray ruts lining this powder room and the bedroom here, where the gray ruts start to bleed sideways, and we designed also this custom wallpaper that also forms that headboard. And this is a master bedroom that converts from two bedroom spaces originally. So we made it an adaptable space that's flexible in terms of usage. So maybe quite pertinent to what you were talking about here. It's about spaces that adapts and taking on multiple functions, either in isolation or with the family. The loft box, reminiscent of my first office project. My first office being at the top level with a pitch roof. And this is the entrance view, and the owners being fans of cinema and also fans of all things nostalgic, trooped down to the projector to, I wanted to say steal, but they bought it. They purchased these cinema seats from Prashant at the projector. And it became a waiting area for the toilet, actually. And this is where you get a better sense of that space within the pitch roof. It's called the loft box, because we inserted this, similar in principle to the Create Apartment, but at a much larger and grander scale, which is to insert this, you know, the ubiquitous white box or black box that houses many functions and slot it in as a new unifying element. Rooms were inside it, spaces go around it. And but this time round, because it has that double volume ceiling, the top surface also becomes usable. And here you see Imran, one of my designers, my colleague, standing upstairs looking very serious. And that's Imran again. And this is where you take the stairs, troop up to go upstairs. And we revealed in part the rest of the existing architecture, we parted down, revealing the original brickwork, even conserving parts of the family, the old renovations, the different floor finishes from the old renovations, like a patchwork of different, of screed and stone and timber. So now this image you see, we are entering the bedroom where you can see that box going all the way to the end of where that floor plate ends. And within it are housed the private bathrooms with some skylights. The bed then faces it directly. And this is another view of that bedroom. The ryokan. So this project we were slow and hesitant to release because of certain stories behind it, but one which is a real labor of love for us. And this was a project that we really took time to understand the sites, to really understand the nuances of the clients, and we deciphered spaces in terms of moments and in terms of textures and in terms of material. So at the back wall, you see these curved tiles, clay tiles used for Chinese temples. And on the floor, you see a platform that has this dappled scoop texture. It's hewn by a sensei in the mountains in Japan. Actually, we had to ship this in because the client is really obsessed and very closely tied to Japanese and Chinese culture through her travels, through her love for and appreciation for these travels. So this house is almost like a shrine to all that she loves and lives, really. It's her lifestyle right now. And our biggest move for this project actually is not in the materials, but in the way that we transform the space and brought natural light in. And I think this image is a powerful one, just to demonstrate how from the back of the kitchen, daylight streams in shots into the hearts of the apartment. So this is a frontal view of the apartment, and this is that kitchen that I was talking about. So that lantern above the kitchen counter and that light box on the floor, they were designed to obscure what used to be sanitary pipes. So the original bathroom the original powder room used to be here, and we had to swap and flip the floor plate this way so that the kitchen enjoys a direct connection to the dining space. And in doing so, well, we could shift the function, but we could not shift the services. And we turned both vertical and horizontal pipes into lanterns and light boxes, also to compensate for the lack of natural light during as the night commences. So by night, these light boxes then are turned on to achieve the same effect as what it would do in the day.
Dennis,
yeah.
we still have 5 minutes.
Okay, I will be fast.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a courtyard space, and again the master bedroom, a miniature version of the overarching context. Bathrooms here are always like pause spaces we designed in lines and planes, and almost like you're walking into the grains of a painting with the marble grains. Lattice Wood is a project that we're about to release soon. Nobody has seen it yet, so this is first dibs. And this is a 3-story penthouse at Patterson Road, and it's named so because of the lattices that we covered and surround every single surface, and they even start to interweave at moments like on the ceiling, and those layers of screens that turns these moving walls opaque. Another view. This is one of my favorite views where you can catch that black steel staircase snaking up. And this is the in-between space. So above that is the private study, which overlooks the lounge and also has its own skylight that you can close up. And the master bedroom, which is again intimate interpretation of what's going on out there in the lounge and the bathroom. And a showstopper is that outdoor onsen space, which overlooks in the background. That's Ion, so it's really right in the heart of the city. Now, apart from residential projects, we also started to get commercial projects. So Dr. Kevin Chua, this was in collaboration with Elementary Co. So they worked on the branding and we worked on the color palette together. So going through the spaces, carving through, we play with lights and layers, the same tools that this aesthetic clinic deals with, and we use it to create and carve out spaces. So the main spaces are monochromatic, but in each room, it's a color burst, just to create some identity, and the lights were designed in unique ways. And that reverse turn, when you emerge from the clinic, the lights are turned away from you. So it gives you a much calmer, cleaner experience leaving the clinic and back into the city. Now, collaborations, this is something quite key. And over time, we have worked with Tedler and Arova. So to us, collaborations are as important as the projects themselves. Not so much for financial or monetary reasons, but for exchange of ideas and just to build relationships with the media or with products and brands. So something we did with Arova called a snow form. So within that 40 cm by 40 cm guideline for the artwork, we extruded it as a three-dimensional form that is also functional in nature. Together with P5 Studio and Montana, we designed, well, this is a very personal piece. It's called Gossip. It's an homage to my own mom and dealing with childhood memories of her. It's my way of remembering my childhood, where she sits on that bench making calls in the afternoon. So this piece in particular is called Vice. It's a modern take on the Gossip bench and also built as a modular bar. We worked also with Janice and Tala. This was last year as part of Saturday in Design. The bulb is a lamp and the lamp is everything. So Tala bulbs are designed to be lamps in itself. We took that idea, paired it with its most traditional counterpart, the ceiling rosette, and multiplied it such that it became something just to behold as a sculptural object in itself. We worked with Gallery, one of our sponsors today, and Tedler as well. So using the stone bending techniques, we imagine what stone could be, and it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek. So stone usually casts their imprints on water, but we're using that to now that we flip that idea to cast ripples onto stone itself, and again extrude it into a bench form. So this brings us to the media, and we enjoy a good relationship with the media, and thankfully so. For the early period is really us talking about ourselves and our work. That's with Asia One, where I showcase my home to a very mass audience. With Rhino Talk, also a very mass audience, and you will see how much I love talking just by the time of that video. My view was 46 minutes. And, but then when COVID starts, these conversations and these connections with the media became something quite important in the overall context of things. It started out in a more voyeuristic way. We just spoke about how we work at home, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's me sitting at home, trying to work. with Tedler as well. Also talking about how we work from home, and it got a little bit more intimate and more honest in terms of introspection as time proceeded. And with Space Furniture, which is really an attempt by Space to build camaraderie amongst creatives in the region and just to lend positivity to each other. And then Site Survival Guide, which is a series of conversations in the region. Science Work is a creative firm based in Surabaya, Indonesia, and I was very proud to be invited to talk because I'm so insignificant compared to the rest of the invitees on that panel. But what I really wanted to put across is that being in a situation like this with a pandemic going on, we start to see individuals and also firms and also entities like SITS rising up just to lend support and hope and inspiration to everyone around us. And for me, I find it important to allow myself to be moved and driven by it, which is why I did that interview, and which is why I'm also sitting here and very proudly being a part of this. And where does this lead us? And this is my very last image. And I took this on the very last day that we could be out working. And I spent 2 hours standing on site trying to memorize it. So many questions as to how we would continue to work, and how does this relate also to not only to the way we work, but the output of our work. And I believe that that's something that we'll continue later on in this conversation, right? So also taking this moment to wish all Muslim friends and audience wonderful and unusual long weekend ahead at home. All right.
Thank you, Dennis, for sharing your humble beginnings. It was very impressive to see how you've grown from your start up to where you achieved. It's very inspiring for us designers. Okay, so I pass the floor to our moderator, Raj. Raj, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Great. The floor
Yes,
is
but
yours.
because of technology, you know, my virtual background doesn't work, so I created a fake virtual background.
No problem. It's good enough.
Yeah, all right. You know, okay. So I think we've had a good opportunity to understand from our President Kiet what SID's all about, Society of Interior Designers. We've heard from Constance about what the significance of IFI is and what it is doing to help interior designers all over the world, and how it wants to pull everybody together by celebrating World Interiors Day every year. We've heard from PC about all the wonderful things he does, and you know, the ideas that he had, and some of the terminology he used. I mean, completely blew me away. I thought I was listening to my professors in school. You know, it was like, you know, I wanted to take down all the notes and capture every slide. Maybe I will have to do that one of these days. And you know, to see Dennis, you know, share a little bit about his explorative journey, you know, whether it's with SIDS or on its own, and of course, you know, complimenting SIDS on helping him grow. I think this is what SIDS is all about. We want to see young designers, new designers come together and grow with us, not without us. So if you have any friends who really want to grow and improve and be a better designer, we have the resources. Come to SIDS and we will help you along. It's a learning journey for all of us, and we'll learn from there. Now back to the topic of the day. Everybody is actually, you know, having to deal with this new situation. People use different terms. They call it the new normal. They are calling it, it's never going to be the same again type of thing. So how do we as designers, first of all, I would use the word maybe adapt. And as we adapt, how do we help our clients and our friends, or even the public, adapt to this new normal? So I think the question I'm throwing to people is that, okay, now that we are not going to go back to pre-COVID, at least for quite some time, because of the social distancing, because of the safe entry requirements, because of the lack of travel through the countries, through the region, and you're stuck kind of within your own country and your home, basically. How do we teach people to adapt? How have you adapted? Maybe we share that. And then how do we teach people? Because a lot of people ask me, Raj, you're the designer. You should know, how did you do up your house? How did you make spaces work for you? How did you suddenly convert a non-office, very private space into a very public space because you appear on Zoom all the time, right? So maybe we can throw that question first to PC. PC? Unmute.
Am I unmuted now? There we go. Okay,
Okay,
cool.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a topic that's kind of close to my heart because I'm used to traveling a lot. If anybody knows me or my profile, I travel a lot for leisure as well as for business, both around the region and around the world. That's been another obsession of mine. And being restricted in that regard has been very, very difficult. So what I've done, the way I've coped with it, or the way I have found the silver lining, if you will, is to take a look at more of a micro approach to design and detailing in my own house. So I look at my work area, I look at a lot of other aspects of furniture and feature and accessory in the house, lighting, many of the concepts that I talked about, and try to improve those and refine and do almost micro product design. And that gives me the kind of feeling that I'm working on a project with macro needs and problems and issues, and trying to pull those together in a problem-solving approach. But yet it's just dealing with stuff around the house. So it's kind of half DIY and half product design, and half kind of enhancing lifestyle and workflow. So that has taken time to become acceptably satisfying and rewarding. That's not like I'm just wasting time. So that's it's half mental, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, PC. And I think that also kind of ties back into what Kate was saying and what we are trying to help other designers identify spaces in their own house by doing the cost, and then maybe using that as a method to help their friends and their customers adapt their houses to have more spaces that are multifunction rather than solely a bedroom or a kitchen or something else.
Yeah, I think multifunction is the key, and not just in space but in furniture and all aspects. So that
Good.
micro detailing.
Okay, thank you. And I will go on to the next one. Next question. I think whoever is up for grabs, you can answer this. We have quite a few people here. Now, in thinking of all this, my feeling is that homes are going to be the new workplaces, right? So should new homes, and especially new home planning, allow for this? For a very long time, we had these bomb shelters. Should we start having phone booths, individual phone booths, so that we can have the privacy of sound and air circulation and the comfort, and start building some of these either on a common floor concept or, one per unit type of thing, moving away from this very tiny houses. But, since you save on real estate in the city, you start planning your houses to be a little bit bigger to accommodate this, so that when, touch wood, if another situation arises, everybody is equipped with this. So where you have better Wi-Fi, most of us are suffering from bad Wi-Fi because everybody is online now. We are started, suffering from, not every house is air conditioned, so it's uncomfortable to be wearing a suit and, and presenting. So I think maybe it has to go that direction. So what do you think, Dennis?
Oh, well, I think you got me stumped, actually. When we think about homes, especially in a context of a city like Singapore, floor area is always the driver for how we go about designing and adapting it to the lifestyles and needs. So spaces playing multifunctional roles is something that we always do. And as Philip's added to that note, furniture also needs to do the same. But what you're seeing here also is a dedicated space for one single purpose, which to me is good to have, but also very idealistic in thinking, right? So, but I think at the crux of that is that everybody has different preferences and needs for their workspace, and it doesn't need to be one singular type of space. I work from my study table, I work at the dining table. If I'm typing text messages and emails, I'm lying down on the sofa sometimes. But what all of these flexible spaces don't quite give us is that acoustic quality. And today is the first time I experienced that, because I have to shut everybody up in the house so that I can talk without interruptions in the background. So I think that that's something for us to think about. I don't have any straight answers right here. The bomb shelter, probably, I'm not sure.
Sorry.
It could be furniture and
yeah,
and also some softwares and hardwares too.
Sure. Brother Chris, you have something. I know you deal with this a lot of times, so maybe you can share your experience. We can't hear you. You're muted. Okay.
Hello.
Yes, now we are okay.
Yep. I'd like to just touch on to rather than getting our home as our another next office or the another new design studio to be. I think very important thing is not only just about the physical of your workspace. I'm more concerned about in this period of time to get ourselves stronger, power up ourselves with better understanding of code of practices, polish up our skill, a better marketing planning, better good portfolio, more to the environment that we are working with. So that is what I feel that is very important, apart from our place. And touch on to your topic, if we have a so-called, because during this COVID period, people who stay in condo or a new estates area, they have a lot of common share area. However, it can't be utilized at this moment. So IT, internet, especially the technology using different platform, it is time for us to explore them.
Okay, good. Thank you, Chris. I mean, I think in this situation, none of us have all the answers. So it is just good for all of us to put our, collective brains together and come up with something. And I think the first step we did was at least like what Kat has started off. If we do the COST exercise, at least we'll be able to tell whether our own spaces, our own homes are adaptable, and by making small changes, can we then advise other people how to make the best of whatever they have, right? I mean, because we don't have purpose-built rooms like a studio or shelter or whatever. So at least to make that adaptable. I give you an example. I have 3 designers in the house, and all of us are working. I've taken the master bedroom, my elder daughter has taken her room, and my younger daughter has taken the balcony. it becomes a real challenge for noise and sound and movement to be able to concentrate even doing this thing, right? So this is
Yeah, I think
again
that's
what
a
we
real
have to think
important
of.
issue. And I
Yes.
think, you know, over the last few years, we've gone for more open, collaborative, multi-purpose spaces because in our small real estate footprints, usually it enhances the feeling of spaciousness and the feeling of luxury and flowability and interaction and blah, blah, blah. You know, like some of the really nice examples that Dennis showed. But I think what we're going to have to look at now is how to be able to adapt some of those spaces into private concentrated work areas as well. You know, again, much like some of the concepts that Dennis was exploring with the crate in the middle of the space, the loft in the middle of the space, which still allows that perception of free flowing open space, this collaborative loft kind of contemporary style, but it allows people to escape. Because particularly these days when we're all stuck together for 2 months, 3 months in a row, you know, everybody's on each other's nerves all the time. So it's a real problem.
Yep. Okay, I'll go on to the next question because we won't have the answer for everything and we have a little bit of a time crunch. Now the question is going to be then, what becomes of the large offices in downtown area? Is that going to affect the real estate market now? You know, I mean, how do we adapt these? Or, you know, I suppose the real requirement for big, large offices to house 300 people, it's not going to be there for the near future.
I think you should use it for migrant worker accommodation.
Please, let's not give up everything for our friends, all right? I mean, you know, we welcome them and we really
cut them a break.
their help in here, but you know, we'll leave that for another day, all right? But I mean, I'm just wondering that, you know, all of a sudden, you know, you have, you know, these large offices that are thinking, hey, you know, we can get people to work from home. I only need 50% of the capacity. I can cut down on the rental, blah, 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 you know. So this is something that I think, you know, we working with the developers and real estate companies and even the authorities may have to come up with a workable solution going forward. You know, decentralization. We at Singapore had already talked about this many, many years ago. Tampines was supposed to be a decentralized town. Jurong was supposed to be decentralized. Nothing was supposed to be downtown. And then everything came back downtown again. So this is something that we will really have to look at, all right? So any comments on that? Kiet, Constance, even Nick? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I have comment on this.
Sure.
Okay, I think pre and post COVID, there will be a really big paradigm shift in terms of workspaces because these are something that I have feedback even from my China officers and some of the Chinese media. They're telling me that you know, pre-pandemic and post, it will be definitely different because things like events, things like workspaces are having a big shift at this point, whereby people are getting used to online because you know, I have few officers in China, so there wasn't a meeting that can go without face-to-face meeting. If you want to sign a contract, if you want to talk about floor plan, you want to talk about even design changes, you know, people are so used to meeting face-to-face before they can, you know, decide on anything. Even if it's just for one thing, you know, you could spend 2 hours drinking, eating, and then just 1 minute to decide on one issue. But now, since the pandemic happened, since the lockdown, because China has the lockdown before all of us, so the thing is, I have to start adapting. So at that point, you know, there are major projects going on, still going on at this point, just that it's crawling. And we couldn't make, I couldn't be flying because the country was on lockdown. So there was only one choice, which is to be on phone, you know. So the best is you could see my face through a video conference. So I think people are starting to adapt to this, what we call the new normal now. And somehow I think after a few months now, people are used to it. But for my office, we were used to communicating online in the first place because I was flying more than twice a week. So it was very hectic schedule for me. So I could be scribbling in and then send something to my staff. So we were used to that kind of working methodology already. So the thing is, so when the pandemic struck, it wasn't a big shock for us. But it was a big shock when clients insist on seeing you, before they can decide on certain thing. Until I think last month, most of the client has started to adapt to the new mentality that, oh, okay, we actually can make decision, based on a teleconference. And of course, contract now easy, because these are things that, we are lucky that this pandemic happened at this point and not 20 years ago, because at this point, we are all adapted to a lot of online facilities. It's just the mindset that is not changing. So this pandemic has forced us all to move into this shift at a very rapid rate. So somehow, addressing to your issue, will the offices in downtown be vacated? I think yes and no, because the experience of a physical space can never be the same, So the thing is, although I'm adapted I'm getting more efficient at this point, that I can do more. In fact, less the traveling time, everything, I can do a lot more. But the thing is, I'm getting really bored, so I'm getting bored by not meeting people, and getting bored by not even moving an inch, So these are things that I think we still need to get back to that kind of social life at one point or another. But I think maybe half the population already get adopted to this, and they may or may not decide on the physical office after the whole pandemic issues. Yeah.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you so much. Before we wrap up, I want to just go to Nick, and I know he does a lot of healthcare spaces, and this is one of the things that I've been noticing. I've been bringing my sister for her treatment to the hospitals, and already the wayfinding there sometimes, and the way the clinics are set up sometimes were troublesome or difficult already, because they send you from one area to another area to another area, and you got to walk for miles, and then you have to go through this screening process and everything else. So with post-COVID, do you think, Nick, that hospitals and healthcare has to be, it will have to adapt? How would it adapt?
Well, let's talk about a couple of things. The first thing is that I think designers generally are very good at this ABW, activity-based working. We're very flexible in the way we work, so we accommodate to the change really well. A lot of people in a lot of industries won't be finding it as easy as we do. Yes, we have more people around in our house or whatever, but we can still work, right? That's the first thing. So the second thing really is certainly houses in Singapore and probably Asia aren't designed for us to spend the day in, So I think we have to have a look at the way that housing is developed and housing is designed, especially if people are going to spend more time at home. The third thing is that we have about 80 million square feet of office space on the market in Singapore, right? And listening to Standard Chartered Bank yesterday, the guy from real estate was talking about maybe they would vacate up to 50% of their offices in the next 3 years, and move to other types of working. So, if you suddenly got 30, 40 million square feet of office space vacant in Singapore, and we're not talking about government offices here, we're talking about real estate on the market, right? Then the implications are massive. So I think you'll see a lot of repurposing. You have problems with central air conditioning in buildings, the same with all sorts of issues going on. You've got problems with people getting into lifts. So I think we have to look at the way people work. If you talk about healthcare, I think healthcare, it's also an unprecedented time. We've got a lot of people have gone to telemedicine, teleconsulting. So going into the doctors, going into the clinic is going to be less necessary. And those things are really going to speed up. So the technology is enabling us to change really rapidly. And I think it's unprecedented in the terms of the sort of data that's going to be available in the next couple of months to see how people really responded. So yeah, I think, I don't think we will go back to what we were doing before. I think it will change. People are going to have to really start thinking about the way space is going to be used. I think it's a great opportunity for designers and architects. You know, I think we should be celebrating. It's fantastic. I mean, of course, we have problems with loss of life, people losing their jobs. I reckon 25% of the US economy, people have lost their jobs, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's going to be implications for everybody. But I think you know, it's an amazing opportunity to see the way that things can change. And technology has not collapsed, right? I mean, if you count the number of Wi-Fi connections in your home, it's probably 20, right? Probably even more than that. And the systems are still there for us. So the resilience of the technology is there. So everybody will be looking at that and seeing how we can leverage on that even more to change as we go forwards. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Nick. Constance, just before we kind of sign off, you know, maybe just share with us, you know, how IFI is, you know, if there's anything that IFI is doing to help. You know, we are kind of isolated over here, but you know, around the world, I'm sure IFI is doing quite a bit to help designers and humanity as a whole. So just quick 1 minute of whatever you know you can share, because we are really running out of time. I'm sorry about that. You know, it's all Dennis's fault, and it's all these slides and everything, and it's all PC's fault because it was so interesting, and it's all Kiet's fault because, you know, he wanted to share so much about SIDS. But you know, all good things must come to an end a little bit. 1 or 2 minutes of whatever you need to share, please. You unmute yourself, please. All right. Go ahead.
Thanks, Raj, and the rest of the speakers. Firstly, I think we would expect everyone in this existing in this world to have a good mental preparation of what we are now expecting. Spiritually, we have to be very prepared wherever we are put in to work, be it in the bedroom or be it in our study or in the balcony. I think if we have our personal preference, of course, sometimes we are not happy to be working in the balcony, but we want everybody to take this home that we must be from now on. Spiritually, be prepared, do the best, and be accommodated at anywhere we think it is possible. Be comfortable with it. Then you will not be stressed out, or else you will go bonker. Like Kiet's 2 sons. One didn't want this bedroom, the other one didn't like the living room. Well, they will end up fighting. But if they have the good attitude and good spirit, everyone have that, I think it will make this world a better place, even though we have experience with the COVID. We hope that you will take home this message as is from the international level. Thank you so much for coordinating all this, and we really enjoyed, and we have really got a good insight from everybody, from all the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Constance. We'll hand it back to Chris, our chair for WID, and he's going to say the closing remarks, and he has a surprise for us as well. Chris, all yours.
Thank you, Raj. Actually, I don't have any much closing remark, but I'd like to share tips for all designers out there. Well, we can't meet our client, you know, physically, and we have to depend on apps such as Zoom or even WhatsApp and all this thing. I actually learned a trick of two, especially to present some confidential portfolio. If you can look at my background here, you know, and my finger, right? So there's a bit of trick that I like to share. If you actually are able to change your virtual background, for example, like this. You see, you can't print screen, you can't, print screen, you cannot capture the good resolution. So you can actually do a presentation with your background and with your fingers as a pointer during your presentation, especially for those who would like to showcase their private and confidential portfolios, and you know, with your finger pointing around, express yourself, material board. So that's a good way that I actually did for the past few weeks using this way of presentation.
So do you allow your clients?
That was a very nice use of your finger. Just use the correct one.
Yeah, use the correct finger. But I mean, we can't use our laser pointer right now. Or you know, we can actually use our fingers and the traditional way, more personalized, more closer in a way. So you can actually point at your material, things like this, you know, and you can always switch your background easily. And it's always being captured that this is your portfolio because you have all your projects and your face together. Okay, that's all that I'm going to say. But lastly, I'm going to propose a cheers with everybody, a toast. You might have to move backward, you know, and move your drinks closer to your body like this. Anyway, this is a Ribena. Everybody unmute, please.
Yes. Happy World Interiors Day 2020.
Happy World
Interiors
Interiors
Day.
Day.
And since
everyone.
Since this is the Singapore celebration, let's use some of our SG accent. Yam Sing.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Yeah. Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Drink up, drink up.
Thank you
Water
very much.
parade.
Cheers. Cheers.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back to James. James.
This is
Yeah, so we're wrapping
Ribena.
up soon.
Ribena,
so
Ribena.
thank you very much, everyone, for watching and attending our talk today. And to wrap things up, it's World Interiors Day, so let's celebrate. It's not really time for us to sulk because of the situation. Stay positive. So everyone, feel safe and stay safe. Okay.
Thank you.
From the
Cheers.
Society of
Constant.
Designer Singapore.
Constant,
Bye.
Constant will send you a flower cyberly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.